Every year in the US, drivers pour close to $210 billion into car maintenance and repairs. But here's the painful truth. At least a third of that money never had to be spent. In this video, I'm breaking down 19 insider secrets only experienced car mechanics usually know. You'll learn about hidden fluids, simple maintenance habits, and powerful reset tricks that you'll never find in your owner's manual. These are the exact strategies pros have used for decades to quietly avoid breakdowns and save thousands of dollars in repair bills. And if you stick with me until the end, I'll show you a completely free transmission reset that can save you well over $6,000 on its own. Secret number 19. At 2:05, Reseal. We are kicking things off with a product that can save you from one of the most expensive disasters a car can have, a transmission leak. Once a transmission starts leaking, everything begins to snowball. Fluid levels drop, temperatures spike, and before long, you're staring at a complete transmission failure. A replacement can cost up to $7,000, which is exactly why mechanics quietly rely on something most drivers have never even heard of: a T205 Reseal. A T205 is a rubber rejuvenator that brings old seals back to life. As your transmission ages, the rubber seals dry out and stiffen, just like a rubber band left in the sun. Once they lose flexibility, they shrink and stop sealing properly, and that's when leaks begin. Pour in a bottle of T205, and those seals soften again, regain elasticity, and close the leak. Unlike many additives with a bad reputation, this one has been proven in labs, in the field, and by thousands of real drivers. One driver was quoted $1,800 for a minor leak. A single bottle fixed it. Another BMW owner facing a $4,000 oil filter housing gasket repair watched the leak disappear after using a T205. Spending $24 to avoid a multi-thousand-dollar repair is about as good as savings get. And while this is tough to beat, the next secret comes surprisingly close. Secret number 18. The affordable alternative to walnut blasting for GDI engines. Gasoline direct injection engines are powerful and efficient. They burn less fuel, deliver better performance, and are found in millions of modern vehicles across the US. But they also come with a hidden downside mechanics rarely talk about: heavy carbon buildup. Because GDI engines spray fuel directly into the combustion chamber, the intake valves never get washed with gasoline. Over time, thick carbon deposits form on the valves, hurting performance, fuel economy, and throttle response. Most mechanics will tell you the only fix is walnut blasting, a cleaning procedure that costs $800 to $1,200 every time. But there's a cheaper solution that actually works. It's called CRC GDI intake valve and turbo cleaner. This additive is loaded with polyetheramine, a powerful chemical known for breaking down stubborn carbon deposits. In testing, it was able to dissolve nearly half of all carbon buildup in under an hour. At around $17, it's an unbelievable money saver. Use it every 10,000 miles and you may never need a walnut blasting service at all. And the next secret proves that sometimes your mechanic doesn't tell you the full story, especially when it comes to engine work. Secret number 17. The torque wrench. Truth about head gaskets. If it feels like your car always seems worse after a mechanic works on it, you're not imagining things. This is especially true with head gasket jobs, one of the most sensitive and expensive repairs on any engine. Here's the part most drivers never hear. About 30% of head gasket failures happen within 10,000 miles of a previous repair. And it's usually not because the new gasket was faulty. It's because the mechanic didn't torque the bolts correctly. Head bolts must be tightened to exact specifications in a very specific order. Too loose, and the gasket won't seal. Too tight, and it gets crushed and fails just the same. With the average head gasket replacement costing $1,500 to $2,500, there is absolutely no excuse for sloppy work. But if a mistake happens, most shops won't admit it. They'll blame the part, your driving, the heat, or anything except the real issue. The best way to prevent this? Watch them work. Most shops use an impact gun because it's fast. You need to insist they use a torque wrench, or you may be right back in the shop months later with the exact same problem. And speaking of jobs mechanics debate constantly, the next secret is one of the most controversial topics in the automotive world. Secret number 16. The hidden danger of transmission. Fluid flushes. Ask 10 mechanics about transmission fluid flushes and you'll get 10 different answers. Some swear you need one every 30,000 miles. Others say you should never flush a transmission because it can destroy it. The truth sits somewhere right in the middle. Transmission fluid absolutely does break down over time. Heat, friction, and contaminants slowly degrade it, which is why changing the fluid around 60,000 miles is smart maintenance. But here's the part most drivers don't know. You should never use a flushing machine on a high-mileage transmission. Flush machines can knock loose large chunks of old debris inside the system. Those chunks then get pushed into small passages, clogging valves and starving the transmission of lubrication. That's how people go from a working transmission to a dead one in a single day. What you actually need is a simple drain and fill. It replaces a good amount of old fluid without disturbing settled debris. And it only costs around $200 compared to the $4,000 plus you could easily spend if a flush kills your transmission. Stick around because later in this video I'll show you another transmission trick that costs even less than a drain and fill and can save you thousands. Up next is another low-cost part that can create massive bills if you ignore it. Secret number 15. The simple strategy to prevent a stuck thermostat. Almost half of all drivers admit to ignoring dashboard warning lights. But one warning you should never brush off is anything related to engine temperature. A stuck thermostat can cause overheating, and overheating is one of the fastest ways to blow a head gasket, a repair that often costs over $2,000. What most drivers don't realize is that thermostats rarely fail all at once. The process is gradual. Inside every thermostat is a small wax pellet that expands and contracts with temperature. As your car ages, that wax reacts more slowly. That's when the early warning signs appear. The engine takes longer to warm up. Temperature readings fluctuate. The engine runs slightly hotter than usual. These are your cues to inspect and replace the thermostat. Most vehicles recommend replacing it around 80,000 miles, or at the very first sign of temperature irregularity. A mechanic will charge under $250, and if you're handy, you can do the job yourself for even less. Ignore these signs, and in as little as 2 weeks, a failing thermostat can turn into a full-blown head gasket disaster. A $50 part suddenly becomes a multi-thousand-dollar repair. If you want your cooling system to last practically forever, don't skip this step. And speaking of cheap parts that prevent expensive damage, the next secret might shock you. Secret number 14. The hidden PCV valve problem. Here's a part almost no driver thinks about, yet it's responsible for nearly 40% of all oil leak repairs, the PCV valve. The positive crankcase ventilation valve controls pressure inside the engine's crankcase. It routes harmful blow-by gases back into the intake so they can be reburned instead of escaping into the air. But once the PCV valve gets clogged, pressure builds up inside the engine. When that happens, seals and gaskets start pushing outwards, eventually blowing apart. It also leads to thick sludge forming inside the engine, a nightmare no car owner wants. Best case scenario, you'll be replacing a few seals for over $1,000. Worst case, the sludge and pressure damage major components, and the bill easily crosses $5,000. And here's why this is one of the biggest mechanic secrets. A brand new PCV valve usually costs around $15. It's cheap, quick, and easy to replace, which is exactly why many shops won't mention it unless it has already failed. To protect your engine and your wallet, replace the PCV valve every 30,000 miles, even if you haven't noticed symptoms yet. Unfortunately, not all emissions-related parts are this affordable. The next one often leads to one of the most misdiagnosed and overpriced repairs on the road today. Secret number 13. The catalytic converter cleaner that actually works. Catalytic converters are one of the easiest ways for shops to overcharge drivers. A failing converter can trigger warning lights, rough performance, or a P0420 code, and many mechanics immediately push a replacement that can cost up to $2,500. But most drivers don't know there's a cheaper fix that works in many cases: Cataclean. Cataclean is a strong fuel and exhaust system cleaner designed to break down carbon buildup inside the converter and fuel pathways. In tests, it restored efficiency in roughly 70% of mildly failing catalytic converters. Thousands of drivers report their check engine light clearing after a single treatment. The key is using it as soon as a P0420 or P0430 code appears. At around $25, it's a tiny cost compared to replacement prices. If you hate paying for unnecessary repairs, the next secret is another big money saver. Secret number 12. The oxygen sensor ripoff. Oxygen sensors fail independently, but many mechanics tell drivers to replace all of them at once. That's unnecessary and expensive. Each sensor can cost up to $400, and replacing multiples can push the bill past $1,200. Here's the truth. If one upstream sensor fails, only that sensor needs replacing. There's only about a 15% chance the other upstream sensor will fail anytime soon, and downstream sensors aren't affected at all. Shops recommend replacing all of them simply because it's easier and far more profitable. If you want to avoid wasting money, replace only the sensor that triggered the code. Nothing more. Up next is another trick mechanics rarely mention, because it can keep your car running long enough to avoid an expensive repair. Secret number 11. The starter solenoid tap trick. You turn the key, hear a click, and nothing happens. Most mechanics will immediately recommend a new starter, which can cost $400 to $1,500. But here's what they don't mention. In about 80% of cases, the problem isn't the starter motor. It's the starter solenoid. Over time, the solenoid's internal contacts get carbon buildup and don't align properly. A quick, gentle tap on the starter body with a hammer can realign those contacts just enough to get the engine started. It's not a permanent fix, but it can buy you weeks or even months, giving you time to shop around for a better repair price. If your car fails to start, try this trick before calling a tow truck. Next, we move to another simple tip that can prevent hundreds of dollars in electrical diagnostics. Secret number 10. The battery terminal protection. Secret corroded battery terminals cause countless false alarms and unnecessary repairs. Drivers often get talked into new batteries, alternators, or electrical diagnostics that cost $500 to $1,000, when the real issue is nothing more than corrosion. When hydrogen gas escapes from the battery, it reacts with air and forms white, blue, or green crust on the terminals. This buildup interrupts the connection and mimics serious electrical problems. The fix is simple. Clean the terminals with a mix of baking soda and water. Then apply a light coat of dielectric grease or even petroleum jelly before reconnecting the cables. This tiny $10 step prevents corrosion from returning and can save you hundreds in misdiagnosed electrical issues. Our next secret protects one of the most critical and expensive timing components in your engine. Secret number 9. The real reason timing belts fail. Most drivers know timing belts should be replaced every 60,000 miles or 6 years. But what shops rarely tell you is this. The belt itself usually isn't the part that fails. The real culprits are the tensioner and idler pulleys. These metal and plastic components weaken long before the rubber belt does. Once the tensioner starts to fail, the belt becomes loose, slips out of sync, and your engine can shut down instantly. This can lead to catastrophic damage or even dangerous accidents. Whenever you replace a timing belt or serpentine belt, always replace the tensioner, the idler pulleys, and ideally the water pump. It adds to the initial cost, but it prevents a far more expensive engine rebuild. Our next secret explains why mechanics don't like a simple product that can keep your fuel system clean for cheap. Secret number 8. The truth about fuel injector cleaners. Here's something many mechanics won't admit. They don't dislike fuel additives because they're bad. They dislike them because they cut into their profits. A professional fuel injector cleaning can cost $150 to $300, and deeper services can reach $1,000. But affordable additives like Techron Concentrate or Royal Purple Max can restore fuel economy, reduce rough idling, and improve performance for under $15. Even better, using top-tier gasoline keeps injectors cleaner than any bottled additive. Engines running non-top-tier fuel build up 19 times more carbon, leading to rough running and wasted fuel. Top-tier gas requires no measuring, no mixing, and carries zero risk of engine damage. Just fill up and drive. Still, some problems go beyond fuel quality, and the next secret can save you hundreds by catching a failing part long before it destroys your suspension. Secret number 7. The wheel bearing warning sign. Wheel bearings rarely fail without warning, but most drivers miss the early signs. By the time you hear humming or grinding, the damage has already begun, and replacing a bearing costs $300 to $600. Ignore it too long, and the failing bearing can destroy suspension components, adding $800 to $1,500 more to the bill. Here's the key. The first warning sign isn't noise, it's vibration in the steering wheel at highway speeds. That's when you should inspect the bearing. Fresh grease might buy you a few extra miles, but don't push it. Replace the bearing before real damage sets in. Just like this issue, the next secret involves a small part that can cause big destruction if ignored. Secret number 6. The truth about engine mounts. Engine mounts don't fail dramatically at first. They move only a few millimeters, but that tiny movement causes big trouble over time. A worn mount lets the engine shift rapidly during acceleration. These small shifts put stress on hoses, sensors, wiring, and even exhaust components. One driver ignored early vibration and ended up with an $1,100 repair bill from the damage it caused. Replacing engine mounts usually costs $150 to $300, which is cheap compared to the damage they can create. Check your mounts at every oil change. Look for cracks in the rubber or separation between the rubber and metal. If you see anything suspicious, replace the mount immediately. Next, we move inside the cabin to a problem many drivers mistake for rainwater, but it can lead to major electrical damage if ignored. Secret number 5. Clearing the AC drain. If you ever find a puddle on the passenger side floor, even when it hasn't rained, you're probably dealing with a clogged AC drain, not a leak or an open window. Your AC removes moisture from the air, and that water is supposed to drip out through a small drain tube near the firewall. When that tube gets blocked with dirt, leaves, or debris, the condensation has nowhere to go. It flows back into the cabin and soaks the carpet. First, you'll notice a musty smell. Then you'll see damp spots. Ignore it long enough and water can damage electrical modules under the carpet, leading to repairs over $1,500. The fix is simple. Check and clear the AC drain tube once a year, especially before summer. It takes minutes and prevents huge headaches. Next, there's another cheap part that becomes extremely expensive when neglected. Secret number 4. The high cost of ignoring your cabin air filter. A cabin air filter is one of the cheapest parts in your entire car, usually around $20. But when it gets clogged with dust, leaves, and debris, it can create repair bills in the hundreds or even thousands. Here's why. A dirty filter forces your HVAC system to work much harder. The first part to fail is the blower motor, which can cost around $400 to replace. If the strain continues, it can even damage the heater core, a repair that often exceeds $1,000, and in some luxury cars like the Mercedes S-Class, it can reach $6,000. The solution is simple. Check the cabin air filter at every oil change. If it's clean, reuse it. If not, replace it immediately. It's one of the easiest ways to protect your HVAC system for years to come. Next up is a quick check that can prevent warped rotors, broken studs, and ruined wheel bearings. Secret number 3. The lug nut torque. Check. Every vehicle has a specific torque requirement for its lug nuts, but most drivers never think about it. And when lug nuts are tightened incorrectly, the damage can get expensive fast. If they're too loose, the wheel can wobble. If they're too tight, you can warp your brake rotors, damage wheel studs, or even shorten the life of your wheel bearings. Replacing all 4 wheel bearings can cost over $1,400. The fix takes seconds. Check your manual for the correct torque value and use a torque wrench. You can buy one for under $50. It's one of the simplest ways to avoid unnecessary brake and suspension repairs. Next, we're moving on to a warning light that terrifies drivers but is often caused by something incredibly simple. Secret number 2. The check engine light that isn't serious. Nearly half of all drivers admit they ignore the check engine light for weeks, and mechanics know this, so some take advantage of it. Here's the hidden truth. About 50% of check engine codes are related to the EVAP system, which monitors fuel vapors. And the most common cause isn't a leak or a broken part. It's simply a loose gas cap. A loose or worn gas cap can trigger codes like P0455 or P0457, making drivers think something major is wrong. Without an OBD2 scanner, many people head straight to a shop, where some mechanics sell them EVAP leak repairs costing hundreds or even thousands. One driver was charged over $3,000 when all he needed was a $10 gas cap seal. Before paying for diagnostics, always tighten your gas cap or replace the seal. It's the fastest and cheapest fix for one of the most common check engine warnings. Now we've reached the biggest money-saving secret of them all. Secret number 1, the free transmission reset. When your transmission starts shifting rough, hesitating, or feeling jerky, the worst thing you can do is rush to a mechanic. Shops often diagnose these symptoms as transmission failure, and the repair can range from $2,000 to $7,000. Higher-end cars can climb to $15,000. But here's what most drivers don't know. Many modern transmissions have an adaptive learning system that gets confused over time. After potholes, aging parts, or irregular driving patterns, the transmission control module may learn the wrong behavior. Before spending $1, try a TCM reset. Every vehicle has a specific method to clear the transmission's memory so it can relearn correct shift patterns. For some cars, this involves disconnecting the battery for 20 to 30 minutes. For others, it requires an OBD2 scanner or a simple key cycle sequence. I've seen this reset fix rough shifting on thousands of vehicles, instantly, without replacing a single part. Combine this with the other secrets in this list, and you can save thousands every year on repairs and maintenance.